Ford Mustang Mach 1 and Shelby GT350, two iconic Ford names that have stood the test of time and become modern performance cars. Now, by now you guys all know the story of the GT350. The Mustang debuted in 1964. Iacocca promised a performance car that everybody could afford. Obviously, the Mustang was a huge hit when it came out, but the performance was kind of lacking. Enter Carroll Shelby, who convinced Ford to give him a fleet of white Mustang fastbacks, and he built the iconic GT350. The GT350 was a performance car. It was right at home on the road, but definitely preferred the racetrack. The modern GT350 is the exact same. It's a great street car, but really shines on its element when it's on the racetrack. Now the Mustang Mach 1, a very similar story. The Mach 1 debuted in 1968 as a 1969 model. Blacked out hood, hood pins, Magnum 500 wheels, and a rear spoiler, the Mach 1 was a sports car, but showed muscle and meant business. And it had the engines to back it up. Your base engine was a 351 Windsor, but you had it optioned all the way up to the 428 Super Cobra Jet, making the Mach 1 an instant classic. Now, Ford used the Mach 1 name various times throughout the years, most notably in 2003 and 2004, and then it turned again in 2021. Now, with the Shelby going away in 2020 and the Mach showing up in 2021, a lot of people compare these two cars. So how do they compare? Well, let's take a closer look. So let's start with the GT350. Under the hood, we have the 5.2-liter Voodoo flat plane crank engine, making 526 horsepower and 429 pound-feet of torque. Backing that, a Tremec 6-speed manual, putting power down to an IRS rear with 373 gears and a torsion differential. Magna-Ride suspension, and then big Brembos with 15.5-inch fronts and 15-inch rears with 6-piston and 4-piston calipers. Now, wheels and tires, your factory wheels are 19 by 10.5 in the front and 19 by 11 rear, with 295 Michelins up front and 305 Michelins in the rear. Now, cosmetically, the entire fender forward on the 350 was unique, and everything was designed to add aero. Inside, you had the optional Recaro seats, and again, an overall high-end performance car. Now, some of the issues with the GT350, the engines definitely had some cause for concern. Now, some of the early ones actually had oil filter issues because of that flat plane crank, and some of the filters actually even detached and the cars became fireballs. Other engines have had some issues with oil consumption, but overall is an excellent performance car and it loves to rev. This engine has the highest redline ever for a Ford motor at 8,250 RPM, and at over 100 horsepower per liter, it's the most powerful NA engine Ford has ever built. Now in this corner, you have the 2021 through 2022 Mustang Mach 1. Now when the Mach 1 came out, a lot of enthusiasts were complaining that it's a parts bin car. Well, in this case, that's not an insult, that's a compliment because Ford rated the right parts bins when they built the Mach 1. Under the hood, Gen 3 Coyote stolen from the Mustang Bullet, featuring the GT350 intake manifold, making 480 horsepower and 420 pound-feet of torque. The Mach 1 also got the transmission from the GT350, along with the subframes and the oil cooler. Then they went to the GT500 parts bin, grabbed the toe link, grabbed the rear subframe, and grabbed the differential cooler, making this a very, very excellent performance car. If you opt for the handling package, you get the same style Magna-Ride suspension the GT350 has, and you also have big Brembo brakes with 15-inch rotors. These cars also came with a 19 by 10.5 front wheel and a 19 by 11 rear wheel, and they were with 305s in the front and 315s in the back, so they actually put down more rubber than the GT350 does. Now, Ford has actually said the Mach 1 might be the best handling car they've ever produced, and definitely it's gonna be up there. If there's any negatives to the Mach 1, people have talked about the parts bin thing, but again, that is a compliment in my opinion. The styling has been in question because really, it's a unique front bumper, but the rest of it's kind of graphics and some interior upgrades. But again, overall, the Mach 1 is an excellent example of a modern performance car. Now, one of the complaints people make is there's no shaker, so it's not a Mach 1, which is actually ironic because the original Mach 1 did not come with a shaker. It was an option, and if you have a new Mach 1 and want one, CDC will be happy to sell it to you. So that's how these cars compare on paper, but now let's take them for a test drive. So while the GT350 is my own personal car and I drive it a lot, I do actually have a lot of experience driving the Mach 1s as well. This particular one belongs to my friend Tony, and he actually let us use his 2021 Mach for a bunch of videos. We did a review of it and some installs, and sadly that car actually got totaled by a distracted driver not long after. So he just picked up this replacement, which is a 2022. Exact same car though, handling pack, Recaros, manual transmission. The only difference is Ford did change the rating on the 2022. They dropped 10 horsepower from it. Anything I've read and seen, they're still making the same numbers on the dyno that the previous generation did. So I don't know if it was just a rating for government or whatever it was, but it really doesn't seem like they're down horsepower compared to the previous ones. It seems just to be a change that Ford made for whatever reason. But the Mach 1 interior-wise, I mean, it's, you know, the ES550 interiors, even the GT500 with the exception of a shifter, they all kind of have the same sort of feel. They changed the dash up. These cars have like a dark spun metal dash, which is kind of industrial looking, but looks very racy in their car too. It kind of fits the Mach 1 theme. Like the Shelby, you got the chassis number over on the dashboard. Now the Recaros are comfortable. The Tremec feels way better than the MT82 if you ever drive them back to back. And even in stock form, this car sounds, yeah, definitely sounds pretty good. And you got that Coyote power. And this car is 100% stock. He did change the tires. Tony's part of Rally North America, drives the car a lot, and Sport Cup 2s were just not going to fit his driving style at all. So he needed something a little better. So, you know, for what he's using, again, not better for the track. So he did change the tires up. But besides that, this is a factory car, brand new. And the Mach, I don't know if Ford did something with the exhaust or not, but it sounds different than the GT does. I mean, I just drove, a good friend of mine just picked up a mischievous purple 2022 GT, and I drove that the other day. It's way quieter than this Mach 1 is. And I have it, you know, this car's in normal mode. I'm not, you know, I don't have exhaust valves open or resonator lead or anything. It's a stock exhaust system. But the Mach 1 sounds like it has a little more muscle than the normal Mustang GT does. Kind of has a little bit of a special tone to it, which, given the Mach 1's heritage, that makes sense. I mean, the Mach 1 was a sporty muscle car back in the day, and it has that feel today, too. The biggest difference with today's Mach 1s, though, is they're built to handle as well. And I said, I don't see this, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, it's a replacement for the 350, and it's like, I don't know that it was directly a replacement for it, so much as, you know, okay, the 350 was a great car, and now you can have a Mach 1 as well. But from a customer standpoint, yes, it falls in between the GT and the GT500, so it is the highest performing naturally aspirated Mustang you can buy brand new. And they are fast. I mean, Gen 3 Coyote, everybody knows by now, is a fast engine, and they respond extremely well to modification. So if you want to go faster, it's very, very easy to do. Now, performance-wise, you know, as far as a comparison, you know, your GT350 is going to do 0 to 60 in like 3.9 seconds. You know, this car is going to come in at 4.3 seconds, so it is a tick behind. Quarter mile, the GT350 is going to run around 12.3 at 117. These are around 12.6 at 115. So again, giving up a little bit, but given the power difference, that's to be expected. Skid pad, little bit of a benefit for the GT350. Believe it or not, braking though is better on the Mach 1. A lot of that probably has to do with the wider factory tires. And as fun as the Mach is in a straight line, you know, getting it out on corners where this car is really fun. And you get that's that classic Coyote sound out of it. But again, I get that this is louder than a Mustang GT. I don't have 100% proof of that, but having driven both of them, you can feel the difference. But yeah, this car is just glued to the road. And again, doesn't even have the Sport Cup 2s on it still. It's got good tires, Continental Extreme contacts. But not quite the same level as the Cup 2, and it's still glued to the road. And the amazing thing with these cars, with these Magna-Ride suspensions, is you get, you know, this amazing performance, this level of handling, but you also get a good ride quality. I mean, you hit a bumpy road, we're actually going down a bumpy road in a minute here, and they ride nice. I mean, they suck up the bumps and do a really great job of that. Anytime I talk to a Mustang enthusiast, and the Mach 1 comes up, and they're like, well, it's cool, but it's just a Mustang GT. It's like, no, it isn't. I mean, it is based off it. It has a similar engine, but the modifications they made, particularly the chassis and the suspension, and even the extra power to the engine, it makes it a different animal. It really does. And personally, I like the Mach 1 bumper. I've seen some people kind of, you know, hit or miss or indifferent to it. I think it's a good looking bumper. Would I like to see a few more cosmetic changes? Yeah, maybe, but Ford really took a solid car with the Mustang Performance Pack, basic Performance Pack 2s, what they started with, and added the right things to it to kind of just take it up a notch and a car truly worthy of the Mach 1 name. Now this 350, like I said before, this is my personal car, so I spent a lot of time driving it. I know the car really, really well. I mean, the biggest difference when you get into this versus the Mach 1, that immediately is that sound. I mean, that 5.2, that flat plane crank engine, it has an exotic tone all its own that just the Coyote just cannot compete with. Besides that, everything's pretty familiar. I mean, I have the carbon dash in mine, but again, the gauges and stuff all look the same. Another big difference, Tony's car has the Recaros in it. His has cloth Recaros. I have the comfort seats, they call them, for the Shelby. The Shelby Recaros for me are a little bit too small. That's why I didn't want them in my personal car. If I could have gotten the regular Recaros like the GTs and the Mach 1 came with, I absolutely would have loved to have them in the car. But I said in the case of the Shelby, the Recaro that comes in the Shelby is just a little bit too small for me. I don't find them very comfortable. But obviously clutch feels very similar. The shifter feels the exact same because you're still dealing with the 3160 Tremec. Power delivery is a little bit different. I mean, with the Shelby, and the more RPMs, the more pulls, the Coyote definitely has more low-end torque. On paper, actually, the Shelby does have more torque than the Coyote does. It's 429 versus 420. But I definitely feel the delivery is different. You know, the power in the 350 is in the upper RPM band for sure, where, you know, that Coyote, that Gen 3, definitely pulls a little more down low. But on the highway, the 350 is like the Mach 1, perfectly comfortable. The valves do close in 6th gear, so, I mean, you can have a conversation. It's like driving a basic Mustang rental car on the highway. It's that quiet with the valves closed. I've done a few highway trips, Ponies and Smokies, where, you know, we're taking it to Mustang week, and, yeah, this car's great on the highway. It's comfortable. The heated, cooled seats are a nice feature on the highway, too. One difference I feel for sure, and I'll probably feel more in the corners, is the 350 does feel a little bit tighter. That might have a lot to do. I do have the Ford Performance springs on my car, while Tony's is at stock height. So that probably does make a difference. The Ford Performance springs are basically equivalent to like the R spring. So they don't lower the car much. I think it's 20 millimeters, somewhere in that neighborhood. But yeah, I mean, the car is tight and responsive. Both of them, the steering is very direct. They both are, you know, ready to go in whatever direction you want them to go in. It's almost weird where the Mach 1 feels more like hopped up GT. The 350 almost feels more like detuned race car when you drive it. I don't know if that makes any sense, but just the way the suspension feels and the steering feels, and definitely the sounds it makes, it is a different kind of ride than the Mach. But when it comes down to performance, I mean, yeah, it is making more horsepower than the Mach and a little bit more torque, which makes it a little bit quicker, but the numbers these cars put up, I mean, it's a good driver's race between the two of them. Now, it is weird. I had the setting set on sport for both cars, and it does feel like the Mach 1 responds a little quicker. Again, it might just be me. I mean, they both obviously handle amazing. But it did feel almost like the turning was a hair quicker on the Mach 1. Although I should do some research to see if the rack's the same or not. But through a corner, I mean, they both stick like glue. I mean, my car doesn't have Cup 2s on it. It's got Nittos on it. So equivalent to the Extreme Contact, same kind of tire. I should mention, the brakes on both cars are incredible. I mean, more braking than you'll use most of the time you're driving this car, unless you're really tracking it hard or really pushing it, like on something like that Dragon or some crazy road. You have more than enough braking power in stock form on these cars. Obviously, there are pad upgrades that can even take it up a level, but again, for most users, you have way more brake than you'll ever need. For a car basically with, you know, the heart of a road course car, they do ride nice on the road too. Again, the Magna Ride does suck up the bumps. This car does feel a little firmer than the Mach 1 does. I don't know if it's the difference in the Magna Ride programming. I'm going to say it's probably more to do with the springs that were changed. But again, this is a car that you can track on the weekend and drive to work on Monday without any problems. So is one better than the other? Again, that's up to the end user. Now again, in my opinion, you can't beat that exotic sound of the 5.2 flat plane crank. but you can't argue against the rock-solid reliability of a Gen 3 Coyote. So is the Mach 1 designed to be a replacement for the 350? I wouldn't say a replacement so much as a worthy successor.